So over the last couple of years, we've seen some massive trades go down in the NBA, and I have a feeling that we're going to see some massive ones go down this offseason as well. With guys like Donovan Mitchell, Brandon Ingram, and Trae Young constantly in trade talks, this could be an offseason just like 2019. So in today's video, I want to look at some of the biggest trades over the last couple of years in NBA history and grade them today. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. This is revisionist history, but I want to see how well these trades have aged. I'm not going to do any 2023 trades, so no Harden to the Clippers, no Dame to the Bucks, or Drew to the Celtics. I don't really think 1 year can justify if these trades can deserve a grade or not for this video specifically. So let's start off with one of the biggest trades we're going to talk about in this video, Paul George to the LA Clippers in 2019. This was a trade that sent Paul George to the LA Clippers for Danilo Gallinari, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a 2021 first round pick that ended up being Trey Mann, a 2022 first round pick that ended up being Jalen Williams, a 2023 first that was later sent to Miami, that was Jaime Jaquez. There's still a 2024 first, 2025 first, and 2026 first involved in this trade as well. So still a plethora of picks to still be decided on. And this trade I feel like is the perfect hindsight 2020 deal. It's funny, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is better in 2024 than Paul George is. The Clippers never got a title from 2019 to 2024 with this trade. And obviously the Clippers would still do this trade today. This is what got them Kawhi Leonard. They were in such a limbo period after Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were no longer on the team. They had a chance to bring in arguably the best player at that time, Kawhi Leonard, who just won a title with the Toronto Raptors, over to LA and bring in Paul George, who was coming off an elite season with the OKC Thunder, to hopefully win a title for the Clippers, something they haven't done in franchise history. But we're grading this trade today. So for OKC, this is a clear A+. What a rebuild for Sam Presti. They moved Russell Westbrook and Paul George at the right time in that 2019 offseason. They got 200 cents on the dollar, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I mean, who would have thought that he would have became a top 5 player in this league, arguably 5 years from now? Shai is going to finish top 3 in MVP voting this season. And that's not even including all the other picks that they got in this deal as well. Obviously, Jalen Williams becoming one is a lead, and they still have this draft capital going forward to make a move this offseason. So this is a clear A+ for the OKC Thunder. For the LA Clippers, I got to give you guys a C for this right now. I mean, if Paul George leaves for nothing this offseason, this goes down immediately to an F. As long as Paul George is on this team, they still have a chance at winning a title, and then that could go up to a grade for sure. But the day Paul George leaves the Clippers or Kawhi Leonard and they don't have a ring to show for it, this trade becomes an F. So yeah, I'm kind of being generous to you, LA, right now, but it's a C. Like I said, though, chance to be an F. But if you do win a title, I'd love this sponsoring today's video. Man, the 2019 offseason was insane, and we still have another trade after this one to talk about. So this one is going to be Anthony Davis to the LA Lakers. He was sent from the Pelicans, the team that drafted him, over to Los Angeles to pair up with LeBron James. The return was the 4th overall pick. DeAndre Hunter was obviously later traded to Atlanta. They got Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, a 2022 first round pick, ended up being Dyson Daniels in this deal, a first rounder in 2023, and then it could have been this year's first round pick, but it's looking like the Pelicans are going to defer this to 2025. So we still don't know what that pick is going to be. The Washington Wizards were also included in this trade. Shout out to them getting just like Mo Wagner just to be included in this deal. And the Lakers won a title. So no matter what, it's an A+. I don't care that it was the bubble. I don't care that it was a weird environment. You make this trade to win a championship, and they did that the following season. So no matter what, if they never won a single title again in franchise history, this trade for them specifically is going to be an A+. This is why you make these trades. This is why you play the game of basketball, to win an NBA title, and they won it in 2020. So this trade is 1,000 times worth it, even if AD wasn't playing at the Pelicans caliber AD. But AD is still an elite player today, so this A+ is justified. For the Pelicans, I'm actually going to give them an A in this deal. I thought they did a good job with their rebuild. Obviously, you would have liked it to gone a little bit different for them. I mean, Brandon Ingram broke out that season the following year after they acquired him. It was kind of silly of them to move on from Lonzo Ball and let him go to the Chicago Bulls, but they were kind of right in hindsight. They knew about the injury concerns with him. I mean, including Josh Hart in a CJ McCollum deal doesn't look great in hindsight as well. But with Dyson Daniels in that pick, that could be, they got a good haul for Anthony Davis, who was an expiring contract anyway. So there's a chance he could have pulled a KD and left for nothing a year later. So I thought they got a good return, and they could get even more pieces from this trade if they moved Brandon Ingram this offseason. So I thought it was a solid return for Anthony Davis, especially because the Pelicans had no leverage because AD requested a trade publicly anyway. We got 2 James Harden trades to talk about. The first one is going to be the one that sent him from the Houston Rockets to the Brooklyn Nets in January of 2021. So this was a 4-team trade that included the Brooklyn Nets and the Houston Rockets, obviously, but also included the Indiana Pacers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, honestly, the Cavs traded a Milwaukee Bucks first round pick in the future for Jared Allen in this 4-team deal. To dumb it down pretty much, yeah, that's an A+. What a return. Jared Allen could get get them a great haul this offseason. They signed him to a great contract extension as well, and is one of the more underrated defensive big men in the league, in my opinion. So that was an A+ from Cleveland, and just be involved in this trade and steal Jared Allen. Indiana pretty much just swapped Victor Oladipo for Caris LeVert, and honestly, this is going to be an A for Indiana. Victor Oladipo was kind of like a ticking time bomb with his injuries as well. Obviously, he suffered some major ones in Indiana. And Caris LeVert, they were able to flip to Cleveland a couple years later to end up getting a first-round pick last year that ended up being Ben Shepherd, and a second-round pick in the 2022 draft that ended up being Andrew Nembhard. So they basically turned Oladipo into Shepherd and Nembhard, who are contributing well for them in this year's conference finals team. So great job by Indy. I mean, for Brooklyn, this is going to get a D. Harden played well for them in basically the year he spent his time in Brooklyn, but they gave up all these draft picks that pretty much handicapped them today. Like, this team wants to enter a rebuild, and they can't currently in 2024 because of this trade they made in 2021, giving up all these future first-round picks in exchange for James Harden, who was also injured during the best playoff run they had with this core of KD, Kyrie, and Harden to win a championship, and they came up short in just round 2 against Milwaukee. And now with hindsight for Houston, this is an A+ for them. Honestly, at the time, people were kind of clowning them for not taking the Philadelphia 76ers package originally for Ben Simmons. They prioritized the picks that they could get from Brooklyn, and these picks are super valuable today. Like I said, hindsight's going to play a big part in this video, and they were also clowned for not getting Jared Allen in this package as well, and they basically flipped Caris LeVert for Victor Oladipo, so it was definitely questionable at the time what Houston did, but these picks today look great. So honestly, everybody was a winner in this 4-team trade besides Brooklyn. Honestly, let's just talk about the second Harden trade that was pretty notable over the last couple of seasons. It's funny because there's another one that he got traded to the Clippers, but we're not going to talk about that one. We're going to talk about when he was traded at the trade deadline in 2022 from Brooklyn to Philadelphia. It was kind of random. He just spends a year in Brooklyn and then wanted out, so he ends up getting a trade. He gets his wish to go play under his former general manager Daryl Morey in Philadelphia. He was traded with Paul Millsap for Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, Ben Simmons, a 2023 first-round pick that was ended up flipped for Royce O'Neal. That player was Bryce Sensabaugh, and a 2027 first-round pick, which is top 8 protected. That could turn into cash in 2029. All right, so for Brooklyn, this is a B. They did not handle both James Harden trades particularly well. They lost all their leverage pretty much in a Harden trade at this point, as he publicly wanted out, and they didn't have a lot of time to make a deal get done before the trade deadline. And Ben Simmons was sitting out this year because he wanted to get traded from the 76ers after the debacle of the 2021 playoff run, and he was nursing some injuries as well, and obviously has just not been anything for Brooklyn, has struggled to stay on the court, and when he's been on the court, he does not look like the pre-2021 Simmons that was an all-NBA caliber player. But luckily for them, James Harden really didn't work out in Philadelphia. I'm still going to give Philadelphia an A- grade here for this trade. Obviously, giving up that first-round pick in 2023 really didn't mean too much, and you hope that you're good in 2027, and with Maxey and Embiid, you think that they will. And even though they only got a season and a half of James Harden, that didn't result in anything out of round 2. They held out. They didn't move Ben Simmons for like a Bradley Beal or a lackluster package, and Daryl Morey played this well and ended up getting James Harden, who was still a top 25-ish guy in the league at the time. And obviously, being how bad Ben Simmons is today, a great job by Daryl Morey in this deal. All right, let's talk about the 2019 trade between the Houston Rockets and the OKC Thunder. I gave the Rockets some props in the James Harden trade earlier, but right now I got a clown on you for this Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul swap. After losing to a KD-less Warriors team in the 2019 playoffs, the Rockets decided to blow it up and trade Chris Paul to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Chris Paul and 2 future first-round picks and 2 future pick swaps. So this year, the 12th overall pick in this draft, the OKC Thunder are getting it from Houston from this deal, and OKC was just in the Western Conference semifinals, and they are also going to get Houston's first-round pick in 2026 as well. And funny enough, Russell Westbrook was never better than Chris Paul was in Houston. They ended up beating Chris Paul's OKC Thunder team in 7 games, and this was a retooling Thunder team with Shea and Chris Paul in the bubble, just to lose to the Lakers in 5 games in the Western Conference semifinals. I'm giving this trade a D for the Houston Rockets. This is definitely on ownership. I don't think Daryl Morey wanted to do this trade. You didn't really go any further than you went with Chris Paul, and you gave up these first-round picks that are hurting you today. So yeah, you're getting a D here. OKC, you're getting an A+. This was a great deal for them. And then they were able to send Chris Paul to Phoenix a year later and get even more assets, and this was pretty much at the peak of Russell Westbrook's career. So a great job by OKC here, A+, and then it's going to be a D for Houston. Man, oh man, if I was making this video a year ago about the Rudy Gobert trade from the Utah Jazz to the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Timberwolves would not get a good grade. But how much of a difference 1 year can make. So for the Minnesota Timberwolves, if they win a title this year, this trade is an A+. For now, I'm going to give this an A. And for Utah, I'm also giving this an A. I thought they did a great job in getting a great return for Rudy Gobert, who definitely had a ceiling being the second best player in Utah. So basically, Gobert was traded for Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Leandro Bolmaro, Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, a 2023 first-round pick, which ended up being Keontae George, and Utah is still getting a 2025 first, a 2026 pick swap, a 2027 first, and a 2029 first. So yeah, a great haul for the Utah Jazz, and we still have so many picks that could end up being pretty valuable for them down the line. But like like I said, for Minnesota, just making it to the conference finals this year is such a success. And I think that's more to do with Anthony Edwards' jump to being a top player in this league rather than this Gobert trade. If you had to pick the main reason for their jump this year, but obviously Gobert just won Defensive Player of the Year. He's been phenomenal for them. And him and Cat in the front court together proved to be Denver's kryptonite with Jokic and Aaron Gordon. So for now, it's going to be an A for Minnesota. Like I said, could be an A+ if they win a title this year, but Utah did a great job kind of just resetting the market for superstar trades. And Gobert wasn't even a superstar, but the haul that they got for him is still amazing today. So they are getting an A in this deal as well. A win-win trade. And then a couple months later, they traded Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Ochai Agbaji, Larry Markkinen, Colin Sexton, a 2025 first-round pick, a 2026 swap, a 2027 first-round pick, a 2028 swap, and a 2029 first-round pick. So for Utah, this is going to be an A once again. What a job by Danny Ainge. I know you had to trade one of your best players in franchise history in Donovan Mitchell to get this haul, but getting Larry Markkinen, who was an all-star in 2023 and the most improved player, on a great contract, getting Colin Sexton, who's been an underrated off-the-bench scoring guard for them. They were able to get a late first-round pick in return for Ochai Agbaji that's going to be in this year's draft. So I think Utah did a phenomenal job in this trade. For Cleveland, I'm going to give it a B+. Now, I don't think that they regret this trade, especially if they can get an extension done with Donovan Mitchell. He's the best player they've had since LeBron James in his second stint in Cleveland, and a lot could change with Cleveland this offseason. If they extend Donovan Mitchell, maybe I up this a little bit, but if they trade him for obviously like 50 cents on the dollar of this trade, that is going to hurt the grade. And obviously, if he leaves for nothing, this is going to be borderline of an F. But for now, B+ for Cleveland, A for Utah. Next up, we're going to talk about the blockbuster from the 2023 trade deadline, Kevin Durant getting traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Phoenix Suns. He was traded along with TJ Warren for Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, a 2023 first round pick, which ended up being Noah Clowney, a 2025 first, a 2027 first, a 2028 pick swap, and a 2029 first round pick. For the Nets, I'm giving you guys an A. This is a great return for Kevin Durant. I know it sucks that you had to move him. Obviously, it was such a big moment in franchise history to sign him in 2019, but they got a great haul. And I think since Matt Ishbia has taken control of this team, they are sacrificing their long-term outlook to try to win a championship right now in their Kevin Durant window. So these first round picks that are going to be in the Nets possession in 2027, 28, 29 are going to be super valuable to Brooklyn, because who knows what Phoenix is going to look like then, because they're investing a lot of their capital into basically 5 guys next season of the big 3 of Beal, Booker, and KD, and then Grayson Allen and Yusuf Nurkic. With the emergence of all these other young teams in the league like Dallas, OKC, Minnesota, Memphis will be back, San Antonio's on the rise. I don't know if Phoenix is going to win a title with this core. So Brooklyn's going to get a great grade here. For Phoenix though, I'm going to give it a B+. At the end of the day, it is Kevin Durant. I think they really messed this up when they traded for Bradley Beal. And I'm not going to talk about that trade in this video, but obviously that has not aged well at all. But you got Kevin Durant, one of the best players of all time. And the reason that they lost in round 2 last year or round 1 this year isn't because of KD. It's been the pieces around him. But if they don't win a title with KD or have to move on from him or he requests a trade, this grade could drop down drastically. And pretty much what made this trade go down was a week earlier, Kyrie Irving requested a trade out of Brooklyn. He was traded by the Nets to the Dallas Mavericks with Markieff Morris for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, a future second, a 2029 first round pick, and a 2029 second. I mean, obviously for Kyrie Irving and a player of his caliber, this is not a great return for Brooklyn, but they had no leverage in this deal. Kyrie was an expiring contract. He was a head case in Boston. He was a head case in Brooklyn at the time. So yeah, they had no leverage in this deal whatsoever. But honestly, for what they got for him, it's not the worst thing in the world. You have no idea what that 2029 first round pick could be. If Luke is in Dallas, it may not be great, but I'm still going to give them a B+ and getting somewhat of a solid return for Kyrie. I mean, if they moved Dorian Finney-Smith for 2 more first round picks at one point, which they had that offer on the table, this would have been even better, but they didn't do that. As for Dallas, you're getting an A+ from me. They're in the conference finals this year with Kyrie as their second best guy. They extended him. I know last year was a disaster, but this year he's really stepped up in his role as the secondary option on this team and has really grown into this role specifically. I do think he'll extend with them this offseason. And if they win a title, like, this is just going to justify the A+ even more. You got a top 25 player in the league for something you'd give up for maybe like a top 75 guy. Back in June of 2022, the San Antonio Spurs traded away their best player at that time in Dejounte Murray to the Atlanta Hawks with Jock Landale for Danilo Gallinari, a 2023 first, a 2025 first, a 2026 pick swap, and a 2027 first round pick. The 2023 first didn't convey because it was a Charlotte protected pick, but wow, what a trade by the San Antonio Spurs. Shipping off Dejounte Murray, who had 2 years left on his deal at his peak value, getting multiple first round picks in return for him was great. It has not worked out in Atlanta. For San Antonio, I'm giving this an A+. For Atlanta, I'm giving this a C+ right now. And it's funny because Dejounte Murray in Atlanta has played well when he's not on the floor with Trae Young. They've had 2 disappointing seasons with this duo together, and there's even a chance that Atlanta moves on from Trae Young or Dejounte Murray this offseason. So Atlanta definitely regrets this trade 100%. As for San Antonio, you have some really valuable picks in the future, it seems like, especially if the Hawks trade a Murray or Trae Young this offseason and maybe take a step back. So the Lakers, I praised you guys before and gave you your props for your AD trade, giving you an A+ there, but right now I gotta give you an F grade for this next trade. It's gonna be the Russell Westbrook from Washington to LA trade. So this was in the offseason of 2021. The Lakers came off a title in 2020, but had a disappointing round 1 exit against the Phoenix Suns in 2021. AD was hurt for the series, and pretty much ownership in the front office just panicked and wanted to trade for Russell Westbrook, who was coming off a good statistical season in Washington. But man, oh man, did this trade not work out. They basically traded Russell Westbrook from the Wizards to the Lakers in exchange for KCP. Yeah, one of the more valuable players on Denver's championship team last year. Kyle Kuzma, who got extended in Washington, D.C., a real floor spacing power forward. Montrezl Harrell, and a first-round pick that ended up being Isaiah Jackson in the 2021 draft for Russell Westbrook. The Lakers didn't even make the playoffs in the 2022 season, and they traded Russell Westbrook and had to attach a 2027 top 4 protected first-round pick just to get off of him at the 2023 trade deadline, which was a good move for them then. But yeah, this is definitely going to be an F for the Lakers and an A+ for the Wizards. What a deal for Washington. Also, I guess for the Phoenix Suns fans, I know I clowned on you guys a little bit for that KD trade earlier. In November of 2020, though, you did an amazing job by trading for Chris Paul. You got Abdel Nader and Chris Paul in exchange for Ty Jerome, Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, and a 2022 first-round pick, and ended up going to Denver, and that pick was Peyton Watson. But yeah, this is an A+ for Phoenix. You didn't really give up that much to get you a franchise caliber point guard that helped you go to the NBA Finals in 2021. And for OKC, it's a B. They were a rebuilding team. They got a decent amount in return for Chris Paul, who obviously didn't have the most amount of trade value in the world. So I thought it was a solid trade for both teams, but obviously for Phoenix, this was one of their better trades in recent memory. We have a somewhat of a win-win trade, Domantas Sabonis for Tyrese Haliburton. So the full details where this trade was Tyrese Haliburton and Buddy Hield going from Sacramento to Indiana, along with Tristan Thompson for Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, Domantas Sabonis, and a future second-round pick in 2023 that was shipped off to Boston. So I'm not going to give this the same letter grade each way. I'm going to give this an A+ for Indiana and an A for Sacramento. Haliburton is 4 years younger than Domantas Sabonis. Haliburton was an all-star starter this year. He had a great start to the year, then got injured and didn't really play up to what he did in the first half throughout the second half. But he's led the Indiana Pacers to a conference finals appearance, in my opinion, as the best guy on the team. I think he's better than Pascal Siakam. And I know for Sabonis playing in the Western Conference, it's a much more competitive conference than the East right now. And Domantas Sabonis was great this year, don't get me wrong, and that's why they're getting an A grade for this trade, and they had to break up Fox and Haliburton, it seemed like. I think just the ceiling of Haliburton as a player is a little bit higher than Domantas Sabonis, and I just think having him as your franchise guard is a little bit more value than having Domantas Sabonis as your franchise big man. But like I said in the beginning, it's pretty much a win-win trade. We're splitting hairs at this point. And lastly, I just wanted to talk about a trade that I'm kind of giving C's all around to. It was basically Russell Westbrook going to the Washington Wizards from the Houston Rockets in exchange for John Wall and a 2023 lottery protected first-round pick that ended up getting traded to OKC on draft night in 2021 to take out Alperen Şengün, and then OKC moved that to New York. But yeah, I think this trade in a vacuum, though, I think it's just C's all around. It did not work out for Washington. It did not really work out for Houston whatsoever. I guess the silver lining out of it is they used that pick to get Alperen Şengün, if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people forget about this trade. It's pretty forgettable. Obviously, you could trickle down the list with some other trades that were made. I mean, obviously, a great job by Boston getting Derek White, Denver Nuggets getting Aaron Gordon, Orlando moving off of Nikola Vucevic that ended up being Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., and Jed Howard, or Portland trading CJ McCollum at maybe the right time. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of these trades in the comments below, and do you agree or disagree with any of my grades here? Subscribe if you're not already for all NBA content like this. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.